afternoon. Good afternoon. We are actually in the morning session still, but it is an afternoon. Nice to meet you guys. My name is Solomon Soka. I am a Deputy Director General for Information Network Security Administration, Ethiopia. I think the moderator or the stage man has said partial experience of mine. I have been in information communication technology industry for the past 17 years. So 10 years within INSA, and then 6 years with Tech Mahindra. And then finally, I returned back to INSA as higher official. I joined the Information Network Security Agency when it was being established 15 years ago by His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed, our Prime Minister, current Prime Minister. And now I came back to the same home after 15 years. It is a pleasure speaking at this stage with such a very interesting topic, keeping cybersecurity at the forefront of Africa digital business. How can we keep cybersecurity as the main agenda for Africa? The previous presenters have said a lot about statistical data, and they prove that we must keep cybersecurity at a focus area. And I want to say something about how we could keep it as our focus area and how Africa can keep herself from the cyber threats. Okay, so the Global Risk Report says that cybersecurity is the second risk globally, next to the environmental risks. So cybersecurity is not only affecting the developed nations, and Africa is not a separate island, so it also is a risk for our continent. So to see the cybersecurity threats and the cost the globe or the world is incurring because of the cybersecurity attacks, as my earlier friend is presented, since 2013 to 2021, it hiked by 5,400%, from $113 billion to 6 trillion, almost 6 trillion US dollar. World is costing or paying such or incurring such kind of cost because of the cyber attacks. The current global trend, just last year, every minute world was losing 11 million US dollar. Every hour it was 660 million US dollar. And every day world was incurring 15.8 billion US dollar, and the world has lost 5.8 trillion US dollar because of the cyber attacks. Africa is not different from the world. Africa was losing, it lost just in 2011, 245 million US dollar. In 2016, Africa has lost 2 billion US dollar. In 2017, it was 3.5 billion dollar. And last year, Africa has lost 4.1 billion US dollar because of the cyber attack, which grown from 2011 to 2021 within a decade. The growth was 1,600%. And when we are talking about cybersecurity, it's just not only about the financial costs. There are lots of costs because of the cybersecurity, because it has become the front line when it comes to the warfare. You know, cybersecurity or cyberspace is the fifth domain, following by the conventional four domains: land, water, air, and space. Now it is cyberspace. And cyberspace it has become the battleground where the states are fighting. And with cyber technology, several states have influenced the people and the governments. They made the nations, or they made the governments or the countries to be favorable and not favorable, unfavorable. Many countries are no longer countries, or they become weak governments. If we can just recall Libya, Syria, Tunisia, and Egypt, the Arab Spring, these are all the results of the cyber warfare. So it is not only about the financial losses, but it also takes down the governments and can also reinforce the governments to run sustainable. So it's also about information warfare. Cybersecurity is about information warfare. We have seen the disruption of conventional medias by social media, which empowered individuals and states to influence people through misinformation, disinformation, and creating the distrust between the people and the government, and created lots of chaos here and there in different continents. And the world that we are looking at currently is the result of whatever that happened on this battleground. Ethiopia is the best example of cyber security attacks in terms of this information warfare. Recently, if you have heard, Ethiopia went through lots of challenges. And the warfare was not only what is happening between the society there on the ground, but this all conventional and social medias were creating lots of misinformation, disinformation, distrust, chaos whatsoever that contributed to lots of shake. But luckily, Ethiopia was resilient as it was when the Italians invaded and they were beaten by the African heroes. So Ethiopia just sustained the current shock also. So this is the best example. But why cybersecurity is increasing? The previous presenters have touched these three pillars: the human, the technology, and the processes. These are the three pillars where the cybersecurity targets or the attackers are targeting. The first most important thing is the human. You know, when we look at humans, we look from the user's point of view as well as the technical point of view. And the Africa has to be seen from both technical, cybersecurity, technical competency perspective, as well as a society in general. The technology should also be considered because we depend on different technologies to run our businesses. Different institutions are using different technologies to automate their business processes to better perform. And the third one is the business processes or the processes. The processes are the rules, the regulations, the policies, the standards, the processes themselves, and the procedures that we follow to manage our cyber security issues, to safeguard ourselves or our institutions from cyber attacks and know our vulnerability. So when it comes to Africa, Africa as a continent has 1.4 billion population. 1.4 billion population. Out of 1.4 billion population, 60% of the population is youth. It is the richest, energetic, and the youth continent in the world. Africa is the richest continent in terms of the manpower, energetic manpower. So 60% youth. And this 60% youth is techno-savvy. They are using the technology always. They are attracted and inclined to the technology. Hence, they are all connected. And out of the African population who are using the internet, 71% of them are using mobile data to connect. And most importantly, and most interestingly, 63% payments are going through the mobile apps. It goes through the mobile. It is in Africa that much amount of online transactions are being processed on mobile phones, which is very risky actually. We are very prone to different vulnerabilities. And as I told you, there is a lack of awareness on cybersecurity when we add to such kind of population who is already connected, who are already connected to the internet via their mobiles, but have less awareness on cybersecurity, as well as we have very shortage of professionals as a continent. This altogether you can imagine how much vulnerable continent are we living in. The second point that we need to consider is the technology. Africa as a continent depends on others' technologies. Is that true? The Westerns create, the US creates, the Asians create, we use, right? We depend on other technologies. We don't have that competency or capability to build our own technology like Chinese do. They just create whatever US creates, apple to apple. They compete. They have their own internet, they have their own social media, they have everything, right? Africa doesn't have its own technology. Although there are certain efforts that are scattered across the continent with little efforts, we need to nurture it, and I will get back to my solution part. And out of those technologies that we are using as a continent, 58% of the software we use is pirate. It's not licensed. We use pirated software. And we are actually seated on the most infectious, the most infected IT infrastructure as a continent. Okay, I have to be black and white because we are in a digital era. So the digital business that is being running on cyberspace is running actually on uninfected, the most vulnerable ICT infrastructure. Yet, all our business is going where? Online. Everybody is using what? The mobile phone to do their business. That is the risk. That is why we need to look into cybersecurity and make it as the primary agenda for our continent. The other one, the process part. We don't have legal framework as a continent. We never worked. If we worked on it, we haven't enforced it yet. But we don't have a common continent-wise. Sorry. Oh, it's counting down on me. Please release the screen. Okay. So, lack of the legal framework, we don't cooperate together because we never stood firm just as a nation. And 90% of the business that is happening in Africa is without the cybersecurity protocols, and lack of policies, frameworks, and strategy are also one of the primary areas we need to focus on. These are the types of attackers, the cyber criminals. 53% of them are organized criminals. 13% are state-sponsored. 21% are internal bad actors, and the rest 13% are hacktivists. And their motive is primarily on finance aspect. And the second focus or motive area is they utilize our infrastructure or people or processes as the secondary target. It means it goes through our infrastructure to get their primary targets, and the others are espionage, which is related to actually the states. They do the intelligence, and the 7% is other parties. So what, if this is all, so what should Africa do? Africa should learn from its history. This is the most important point, and this is some value that I'm bringing in to this session to look into. Africa went through 3 stages when it was struggling its colonials and for its independence. For independence, Africa went through the internal struggle, and then our forefathers understood that they had to collaborate and cooperate, and they made a brotherhood relationship, and finally they created the organization or the framework for their cooperation. Just few minutes. These are something that you can remember for internal struggles such as Mau Mau movement in Kenya, Maji Maji movement in Tanzania, anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, and resistance movements in different parts of the continents. These are the messages from the forefathers. The Ghanaian president said that we must unite now or perish. The J.K. Nyerere of Tanzania said, without unity there is no future for Africa. And Emperor Haile Selassie made a speech that we must march toward this Africa unity in 1963. And through the brotherhood, the independence iconic leader of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, was trained in Ethiopia to go against the anti-apartheid movement. And finally, our forefathers came to organizational framework and established organization for African Union, which has become the African Union now. So this is the model. I am taking that as a model for cybersecurity. So for cybersecurity, Africa should focus on 3 things, learning from its forefathers. This is really very important. 1, African should work on product ownership, the technology ownership. They have to create African solutions just like Chinese did for themselves. Africa should do the technology ownership solution. And the organization I'm leading is doing lots of cybersecurity products and technologies. And as our forefathers did, we must collaborate and partnership with a brotherhood. Africa as a continent should team up with limited competency and resources, but with a potential of use. We must collaborate, we must unite, we must take hands together and work on the research, cybersecurity research and development initiatives, and also work on threat intelligence sharing, etc. And finally, we must have the continental binding governance and management system. We must have African CERT. We must have the Information Network Security Agency for Africa. We must build institution just under African Union, just following our forefathers. So here is the thing. I want you to just stand up once to do one exercise. This is the last slide that I am going to do, and we must do it through exercise. I humbly request you to rise up. I humbly request all of you to rise up. And I humbly request you to hold hands. There is no COVID protocol for today. Hold hands, please. Hold your hands. Team up. Make a network. So Africa has what? A solution, which is, this is the answer. United, we stand. And cybersecurity will be, we can safeguard our continent from cyber threats through our unity, collaboration. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you so much. As he received the... Wonderful. Yes. Keep on doing that thing. That thing. Yeah. Thank you, Praveen. Thank you, Mr.